Anna is at work right now, and she happens to be in the middle of a meeting. Now, everybody, including the boss, is participating, right? Everybody's chipping into the discussion, except for her. Now, she feels her palms sweaty, and her heart is beating like really, really fast because she has something to say, and she's trying to muster up the courage to speak, but she never does. Right? I mean, she feels insecure about speaking English because, God forbid, she made a mistake and everybody thinks that she's stupid, or that she says something incorrect and everybody laughs at her. She doesn't want that. And because of this, she assumes, even though she knows it's not real, like deep inside of her, she actually assumes that everybody is cleverer than she is because they speak English.
Welcome to Confidently Speaking, the podcast that'll get you to fall in love with your own version of English.
Now, just because someone is confident doesn't mean that they know everything. Of course, there's no reason why talking about Anna, there's no reason why she can't learn how to contribute to discussions without feeling stupid or even anxious. Now, most informal meetings have an agenda. So, you can see beforehand this agenda, and this will give you a chance to prepare. Take your time to identify topics that you can contribute to. Write down a few notes for yourself. And if you're working in English, look up some key vocabulary that you can use while you're in the meeting. If an item is unclear, hey, talk to the facilitator or the person in charge, usually the boss, or other colleagues. Perhaps, hey, even test your ideas on them, right? Like let them know what you're gonna participate with in the meeting, and then get their feedback, right? Now, for informal and impromptu discussions, of course, you'll need to use some of the following tips, which work for both formal and informal meetings. Now, it's important that you believe in yourself, right? We are often our own worst critics. Now, we censor our input by telling ourselves our ideas aren't original or relevant. We avoid responding spontaneously to the ideas of others for fear of sounding stupid or naive, right? You need to remind yourself that you are in the meeting because you have relevant knowledge and experience. I mean, why else would you have been invited to attend the meeting if you didn't have something to contribute? And in informal discussions, you are part of a group. Everyone is equal. If you are the self-censoring type, these next tips will help you change that. Tip number 1, agree with others. When someone expresses an idea you agree with, support them openly and compliment them on what they said. Then, if possible, add something of your own. Now, this helps ease you and your own ideas into the conversation. It can also help you build rapport with the people you compliment, right? Agreeing with someone is usually quite easy, and it's the simplest way of contributing to a discussion. Number 2, ask questions. Another form of contribution is asking questions. Now, these might be questions you've prepared based on the agenda of a formal meeting, right? Then you just need to ask them at the right time in the discussion. In general, open questions, those that begin with what, why, how, etc., these work better than closed questions. Those that can be answered with a simple yes or no, because they naturally encourage discussion, and that produces a collaborative feeling. Now, in informal discussions, look for opportunities to ask questions. This involves you in the discussion and motivates you to be fully engaged in what is being discussed. This in turn, of course, makes it easier for you to become an active participant, which is what you want. Now, number 3, listen actively. The key to speaking in any conversation is listening. A major problem in meetings is that many people don't really listen, but simply wait for a gap in the conversation in order to take over and say what they have wanted to say from the beginning, right? Now, some second language speakers may think more about avoiding grammatical mistakes than about the content of what they're trying to say. Don't let this be you. Listening actively requires concentration on what the speaker is saying. Now, if you find that difficult, try mentally repeating their words as they speak. Now, this forces you to follow what they are saying, and remember that body language and other signals that show you're listening can also help you to pay attention. Tip number 4, give yourself some time. If you need a moment to organize your ideas, give yourself a few more seconds by using a filler phrase. Of course, I'm going to teach you some filler phrases in a moment, but just remember that this is a way of signaling that you are about to say something so that the opportunity to speak doesn't pass, right? Use these like that. Now, number 5, explain simply and clearly. Use common, uncomplicated words and sentences and get to the point quickly. This way, everything you say will be understood, and it's easier for you to put the sentences together. Using straightforward language will let you sound more confident. Now, expanding a little bit on this point number 5, I'm sure you guys have scrolled through Instagram or TikTok or even Facebook, and then you find these posts by so-called teachers who say, "Hey, stop saying this," or basic vocabulary versus advanced vocabulary. Now, there's a reason why basic vocabulary is basic, and that's because it's very, very common. I mean, just now I said very, and there are many people and many so-called teachers, again, who tell you, stop saying very. Every time I see that, I understand what they're trying to see, creating controversial, type of content that usually goes against what they teach you on the first classes of English as the word very, right? Gets your attention. Because if you say very all the time and then somebody tells you to stop saying very, of course they're going to get your attention. But, think about it. Listen to radio shows, listen to podcasts. I know you're listening to one at least right now. Listen to how they speak on TV series and the news. And, every time you consume content of people speaking English, you'll always hear the words of very, right? The word very. So, what's wrong with it? There's actually nothing wrong with it. So, if you're familiar and you feel confident using the word very, then stop, tripping yourself up over these, right? Over this specific circumstance. Just go ahead, use very, and then keep going. Later on, if you want to increase your vocabulary or, start using more complex grammatical structures, of course you can. But in the meantime, you got to remember that the message is paramount. The most important thing is you transmitting whatever it is that you need to transmit, regardless of how you do that or how basic or simplistic you are when doing so. All right? So just remember that. Now, let's take a look at a couple of phrases that you can use. For example, 3 phrases that you can use to agree with others. Check this out. The first one is, that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. Hey, it makes me think that we could also. And then you continue. The second phrase, that sounds cool. What if we were also to? And then you say whatever you want to. How about this one? That seems like a sensible approach. It would allow us to. It would allow us to. And then, of course, you mention what it will allow you to do. Phrases that you can use to ask questions. The first one goes, what are your thoughts about? What are your thoughts about? The second one, how do you think we should do that? How do you think we should do that? And then the third one, why should we choose that approach? Why should we choose that approach? Phrases to give yourself some time. Now, let me see. As you say this, and if you practice this enough, you will actually say this without using any mental power to process this phrase, and then you can use that mental power to think about your next phrase, right? Another phrase you can use is, well, how should I put this? And then go ahead, right? I mean, of course, later on, as you continue practicing these, what you want is to stop using filler words. However, in the heat of the battle, in the middle of a conversation, sometimes you need a little bit of time to think, and that's totally okay. Go ahead and buy yourself time with these. As you master the art of conversation, of course, it's going to come easy to you. And then the third phrase on giving yourself some time, what is the main question here? Hey, I understood what you said, but what's the main question here? Right? And then finally, some expressions you can use to explain simply and clearly. Check this out. Well, I suggest that. And then you go ahead and express yourself. My proposal would be to. And then, of course, the last one, why don't we? It's as if you're inviting them, right? As in, why don't we go about this like this? Right? Why don't we go there? Why don't we do this? Why don't we? Alrighty, everybody. So I sincerely hope you guys can get as much value as I think you will from this episode. Thank you very much for listening to me. And just remember that this podcast is not free. I mean, you don't have to pay anything, but I would certainly appreciate it if you guys paid me back with some love. I'm talking about liking, rating, commenting, right? And also follow me on my social media. You're going to find me on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, X, everywhere as English with Frank. Lowercases, right? At English with Frank. Lowercase and all of it together. Alrighty, so it's been great. Want you to have an amazing weekend. I'll see you. Oh, you know what? By the way, I wanted to tell you about, I'm thinking about switching the publishing time. Right now, so far, it's been every Sunday at 7 p.m. Mexico City time. I'm thinking about doing the publishing of the episodes on Saturdays in the morning. Let me know what you think about that as well. All right, so have a good one, everyone. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.